Hello, my name is Lou,
I'm Katie.
and you're listening to Files from the Other Side. This week we're opening the files on.
Spiritualism.
Yes, say it with confidence.
I was like spiritualism or like Madame Blavatsky or like Theosophy or the Fox Sisters or spirit boards or the whole thing. All of it.
I like to think of it
Spiritualism.
as like a time frame. Like
Oh,
when we're, like, you know what I mean? Like spiritualism was kind of like the 19th century, like late
yeah.
19th century, early 20th century
Yeah.
spiritual movement in which there were a lot of important people, a lot of important things. And so that's how I mean it. Well, I guess that's what I mean when I say that. So it's very specific.
Yeah. So the Gilded Age?
LOL. Well, interesting time because spiritualism was at the same time as like a changing political landscape, which isn't to say that like the political landscape hasn't been ever changing since then, but like
Yeah.
particular things were going on, like equal rights for women was like a huge thing. It followed the abolition of slavery and the Reconstruction era, and it was during the rise of the prohibition of alcohol, also called temperance, which I thought was
Temperance.
funny. I
Yeah.
never heard of that
You
before.
didn't know that?
No,
Oh my
I always thought
God.
it was just prohibition. I never heard of it as like the temperance
No,
movement.
the prohibition was like when it was actually illegal in the States, but the temperance movement was the whole, yeah, that was the whole, all the Christian housewives were like getting beat by their husbands when they were drunk, and they were like, we need temperance! Like that's the origin of the temperance movement.
Interesting.
Oversimplified. Way oversimplified.
Interesting because it kind of overlaps, right? Like there's like major themes going on during this time.
Yeah, well, and the a lot of suffragettes were also, I'm totally forgetting what, but we're supporters of temperance. So it was a lot of the OG suffragettes were big leaders in the temperance movement as well.
Interesting.
Because they saw what poison it is. Like, I think that old school, like, it was believed that, like, that's why they're called spirits, is because, like, spirits could possess you, right? While you were doing it, while you were consuming the substance. But yeah,
Yeah,
they
my
saw that it was
friends Shayla and
poison.
Cheyenne have. Oh, sorry. My friends Shayla and Cheyenne have said about spirits. They've said, I think in their culture they believe that there is a spirit in alcohol itself too.
Mm.
Like not just
Sure.
that you're more susceptible to spirits, but that the spirit itself is in the alcohol, just like the spirit of tobacco, spirit of all these things. So I definitely see that as like an overlapping theme. That's very interesting.
I mean, yeah, they also, again, were getting beat, so but they were also like, it's the devil, it's possessing you. I mean, but
Yeah. Yeah, they live in their context for sure.
yeah.
So will we. um,
So we'll wait.
who wants to get into it first? You want to go for yours? Or you want me to go for mine?
You go for yours. I'm
Okay.
nervous. I'm just nervous. Like, Madame Blavatsky is just like so important, and I don't know. Now that I'm like, we're here and we're doing it, I'm like, ooh, I'm
Yeah,
scared. But we only
don't be
have
scared.
X amount of time anyway, so it's fine. It's perfect. I definitely have enough to fill 7 minutes.
So when I think of spiritualism, I think of the Fox sisters for sure, and they're also, I feel like, stated as the catalyst of the spiritualism movement. I think that when people start talking about the spiritualism movement, they're like, oh, and then the Fox sisters, like it's like the start, and then you get into like literally anything else. But it follows the story. The story I'm going to tell follows Margaret and Catherine Fox, Maggie and Kate, who were younger, very young girls. I think I read somewhere that when they started, they were like 11 and 14. They tried a prank on their superstitious mother that they'd been able to communicate intelligently with spirits using a knocking that seemingly came from the walls in response to their prompting. Um, it later became known as the rapping hoax because the sisters later claimed, I think it was in 19 or 1888, they claimed that it was just a prank on their mom and that
Wait,
they had
when is
been.
this going on?
So in 1888,
Well, that's when they were can't like they told us that
they
it
were
was fake,
canted.
but like
But
what?
like it's like 30, 40 years earlier.
Okay,
Like 30ish years earlier that
okay,
they
so the
started rapping.
1850s or so. Okay, word.
Like 1848, 46, yeah, something like
Okay.
that. Yeah, so like they were just like, "Hey mom, we gotta show you a cute trick. And then their mom was like superstitious, so they thought it would be funny. And then it just became like a parlor trick. Maggie and Kate would perform enormous seances with handfuls of people over the course of their careers. Because essentially, doing it one time for their mom and a couple times for their family launched them in to be serious, successful mediums. So they ended up living with their older siblings at some point to do all of this stuff. They move out of their parents' house and they're just like well-known traveling seance artists. And they didn't have a lot of parental supervision, obviously. So when they were climbing social circles as these performers, they were heavily influenced by alcohol. And that was like, obviously we just said it was like a big issue during the time. And so essentially what had happened to them is in 1888, they say, yeah, the rapping was just a hoax. It was a joke. It's a prank. Because all of these stage tricks they've been doing about the knocking was they were using their physical bodies to do the rapping, like their joints, their knuckles, their joints, they're not same thing. But their muscles is what I meant. Their muscles, they would like move their muscles and it would be loud enough for the stage to hear. So they sort of just led with it being the communication. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's just me snapping.
Yeah, and so they would just do it in their own ways. And I think I've heard, too, that, like, because when they were really young, like, one of the younger siblings would just go around, like, knocking shit. I don't know. So,
cute.
Yeah, and it's sad, though, because they also fell into poverty later in their lives. It's, like, a sad ending to a rather extraordinary story. But their history lives on because, like I said, it was the catalyst for spiritualism. Maybe what they were doing or that particular thing that they were doing wasn't necessarily real, but this was a huge theme during the time in a lot of parlors, not just with the Fox sisters, but a lot of different people across the world. And so, just like they're the catalyst because they also like are women and like kind of led the movement. And that's just like an important factor of spiritualism, that it does start with the Fox sisters. Although with the Fox sisters, we do get Harry Houdini, who's just like a man's magician about it. He's also a stage performer, and he just essentially is mad because he's like, why aren't these other magicians just owning up to their tricks? You know, like we talked about in the Uri Geller episode. But, you know, the reason he was mad is because he's like, it's not real, it's a stage trick. And so he starts like debunking all of these people. And so there was a big movement to not believe these spiritualists as well. But that leads me into my second thing, which is spirit boards. And these are like another important factor coming out of spiritualism in that time frame. During the spiritualism movement, it was well believed that one could communicate with spirits of the dead relatives, right? So that thing about Harry Houdini being like, it's not real. It's like, it's kind of in confrontation to a lot of the emerging spiritual beliefs anyways, or the re-emerging, I should say, because contacting spirits isn't new, or it wasn't new at the time. It's just a resurgence in the spiritual space, essentially. So people were seeking that kind of kinship through spirit, especially in the wake of the American Civil War and other era tragedies that left people feeling lonely and disconnected. Spirit boards became a parlor game for wealthier families to try their hand at spirit communication, using the same theory that one could contact the dead through automatic writing. And automatic writing had been a thing for like ever. So it presumes a sort of mediumship. You know, you have to use the automatic writing or you have to use the board. Whatever. You got to use something. Mm-hmm. A spirit board consists of the alphabet and a yes, no, and goodbye appearing on the board for a planchette to glide across during use. I'm sure you guys have seen one. It's the Ouija board.
I was like, wait, that's a Ouija board. Like,
it's
right?
Just a Ouija board. Yeah. Okay. I'm talking about it as if no one has ever heard of it before.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to give you a little...
I was like, wait, what?
Well, I'm glad you got the clue. I'm glad my description was on point.
Yes, you described the item well.
But generally speaking, so like how it starts is you like welcome the spirits to talk, ask questions, and then the planchette would move towards the answer or spell out some sort of answer. And even at the time, they were hotly debated as a real way to communicate with the dead. But like any tool that is designed to do that, it will be debated because people don't want to believe that you can do that. It's not within our reality to talk to spirits. Regardless, spirit boards became hugely popular, produced by toy companies, and live on as the tool as it was intended to be, albeit demonized and seen as devilish witchcraft, a little plaything. And it seems to me that it's a dominant narrative around spiritualism and spiritual tools anyways, so a lot of that bullshit I just say, whatever. But that's my piece on spiritualism. Girl. I did it.
So funny. One of my favorite cases, I don't know how to explain, what is it, aliens? I think it has to do with aliens, but one of my favorite fucking cases has to do with spiritualism, because spiritualism stayed really big, at least in Brazil, supposedly for forever. So check out the lead mask case. That's some spiritualist shit, but like a more modernized version. There's a lot less it's like a whole like electrical engineering circuit, or super into spiritualists and try to talk to Martian spirits. Very fun. Yeah, no, this is a big thing that was going on in the fucking 1800s. Because we had our girl, Madame Blavatsky, over in Russia. So she founded the Theosophical Society, which is like a specific way, like, they say it's not a religion. Adherents say it's like, not a religion. It's like a full, where is it? The scholars category it as a new religious movement or a form of occultism in Western esotericism. But before she co-founds that in 1875 in New York, she was born in what is now Ukraine in 1831. And she married this dude, Nikifor Blavatsky, on July 7th, 1849. She runs away from him a bunch of times, though, to go be with her family, and then they finally just, like, let her. Like, either he or her father just starts paying for her to fucking... Because she doesn't actually run away to go be with her family when she actually does ultimately run away. She runs away and then just goes and travels around the world.
And reads books. Like, she just reads a lot of books, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Too.
No, she reads a whole shitload of books. We talks to a whole bunch of people that are called, like, the masters, who are, like, the adepts.
She quickly becomes, like, engaged in spiritualism. Like, it doesn't really take her very long.
Yeah. She probably...
Did you read anything about her being, like, gay?
I heard a lot about her being asexual.
Yeah, I heard a lot about that too. I say gay because people start with the gay and then because they ignore the asexuality. I'm actually really proud of you for saying that, because a lot of people ignore that that's part of the spectrum too. Interesting tidbit too, that she's queer a little bit. Like, she always reads queer to me.
Yeah.
And and at the time she wouldn't have been like, I'm asexual, right?
No.
But she was not interested in certain things that it's like, what the hell, girl?
No, and she had somebody who wanted to marry her, and she was like, okay, but if we don't have sex. Like, she was, like, on the record, like, not into, like, it was, one of the ways she spun it was not, like, I'm asexual. It was, like, I am, like, not concerned with the baser fucking desires of humanity.
Well, especially, that makes a lot of sense if she's looking for the masters, too.
Yeah. But she was also into food, apparently. Like, she was apparently...
Yeah, she was a little chubby queen.
We stand, but, like... But usually food is one of the sensual pleasures that people are talking about when they're trying to fucking... Well, I've also heard that she had a lot of really fucked up health problems, too, so that might also be a thing. A factor in why she was, like, not into it. But yeah, she was, like... legit not, like, she was, like, asexual. She wasn't going around fucking everybody.
Well, and it's like a stark contrast to another spiritualist. I don't remember when she was born, but Dion Fortune, who was super into sex magic. She was from England or something like that, but she wrote Psychic Self-Defense and, a bunch of other books, and she very different interest. Like, when I think of the two of those people, I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
So different.
Blavatsky, I think I remember hearing in one of the podcasts I listened to, like, a giant, like, 6.5 hour, like, 3-part fucking on Madame Blavatsky. And one of her also thinks it was that if you introduce sex magic into, like, it's black magic. Like, sex magic is black magic in her mind as well, which is fascinating. That.
Well, and Dion Fortune was super homophobic. Like, so she was like penetration only.
Interesting.
So here's where I'm at. You want to dive, just like do a little side tangent. Sex magic, I don't think either of those ladies are right. Just by the way, if I do say so myself, because I don't think it's evil. I think in those times there wasn't a lot of the sexual discourse we have today, and
no.
We can have, now that we have these languages to have the sexual discourse with partners and stuff, like, I think it makes it easier to imagine a world in which sex magic isn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
But traditionally speaking, it's like depicted as like one of the worst things you could do.
Well, because sex is one of the worst things you can do, and magic is also like in our American Protestant like culture that you and I have grown up in. Like, those are both such bad things to be doing. So combining them, just like the intersectionality of it, really. Like, you're just like, it's
bad
just
magic. You might
compounding, like how being a woman is bad and being a person of color is bad, but when you're a woman of color, it's like exponentially worse. Like, yes, I feel like that's what sex magic is for a lot of Christians.
Yeah, I think the people just don't have a really great imagination about how things could be just not what you think.
Well, it's also just like sex is the most godlike that we get. Like, it's how we create life, which is inherently something that God does. So like
and that's beautiful. But also has a lot to do with penetration again. You see what I mean?
What? Like
spreading, like having a baby. Like you said, life, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I take away from it is that part of like, as long as it's consensual, the sex I have is good. Because I'm in it for my pleasure. And that's period. Like, I don't go plus life. Plus I'm trying to bring some sort of life into it.
I never am trying to bring life into it. I'm just saying, like, it's like when we associate sex and creativity, I understand that association because it is on a biological level how we create.
I mean, that's very true, and also brings up another point, which is be creative in bed. That's fun.
Also that, yeah. Yeah, because I'm not, just because I've had plenty of consensual sex that was not good. You know, like, not everyone knows what the fuck they're doing. Like,
and I'm just lucky because I have a partner that I can have sex with all the time. So, anyways, that was a tangent. Back to Madame Blavatsky, our asexual chubby queen. Yeah, because she was like, okay, so maybe some of it was fraudulent. Maybe some of her shit was not. Like, there's definitely evidence that there was both. There's a lot of crazy shit. She made up her own fucking origin story for herself. She changed it a bunch. Like, there is legit, like, I was reading online and they were like, I forget who is it, but some historian was like, I think Clark something, or anyway. It's on the Wikipedia page. You guys can look it up. But, like, somebody was literally like, we don't know. There's like solid 25 years of her life that no one can corroborate because she was fucking lying about what she, like, her story changed. But she does co-found the Theosophical Society in 1875 in New York with Henry Olcott and William Quan Judge. It draws heavily from Neoplatonism and Hinduism and Buddhism. Obviously influenced by, like, all of this. She's going to the seances and all that good shit. She's, like, making shit appear out of nowhere from, like, family heirlooms just out of nowhere. But I heard one time she made, like, Ukrainian people appear in America.
I did not hear that somehow.
I think I read it in the book I read about her. It was, like, she would make, like, people who didn't look American, like, show up around her.
She was like, I'm homesick. I need some Ukrainians around me. Like,
yeah, they'd be like, it was like an oddly Ukrainian or Russian looking motherfucker. It's like, it makes me laugh because I'm just like, I love her and I don't care if she lied about anything. She's so cool.
I would have hung out with her. I would have I would have hung out with her. Like, we would have been homies. Like, we would have waxed philosophical. It would have been great. Yeah, because she wrote, I mean, it's not like she didn't, like, write a bunch of Unveiling ISIS, The Secret Doctrine. There's a couple other books I saw on Wikipedia that I did not write down. Those are the two big ones, though, like, of her big works. And yeah, like, she was like, just pulling together, like, she was like, all religions are fucking all trying to say the same shit. Like, we're all, there are different ways to, like, because there's the absolute universal truth that everything is emanating from in theosophy. So, Like
Yeah.
she got a special mission from the Masters, who like maybe they weren't even, who knows, you know, maybe they were
aliens.
maybe they were. I love that, because that was one of the
who
podcasts floated, that it was just like the men in the spiritualism society that like in the society, because 1800s women don't have we can't vote, we can't fucking own property, we can't, like, there's a whole bunch of shit.
Okay, when people say they get divine visions from God and then they do something crazy, I tend to believe it was a divine vision or an alien vision or whatever. I'm like, yes, that was supernatural. Because what you did about it was fucking weird. And you wouldn't have done that if it wasn't so supernatural, I think.
Unnatural deeds do breed unnatural troubles. Hamlet.
You with the quotes.
No, that's Macbeth.
Quotes.
That's Macbeth,
so
sorry.
Good.
That's my favorite line in Macbeth, because she fucking murders somebody. Lady Macbeth murders somebody, and then she's like, can't get the fucking blood stain out of her damn it spot out, and the fucking the doctor's looking at her. She's like, yeah, she's like murdering a whole bunch of people, so she's going insane.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that, because like your brain, like, it has to be supernatural in some way, because like your brain can't like handle it. Like, you have to do something crazy and weird to like get it out of your system, like, and process.
I feel that. I just feel that thing.
The
I feel her on a
outdated
spiritual level.
Unnatural deeds do breed unnatural troubles.
And also that I would do something cool and crazy and kooky, like Madame Blavatsky, and form a religion. Except I live in this time period, so that's not the mission. It's just not the mission.
Yeah. Well, she wasn't
like
trying to. I mean, she wasn't making any money or anything. She was just like, "Here's the truth. Like, I'm the one telling it."
Yeah, but she was like organizing. Is kind of what I mean.
Yeah.
That's not. I'm just saying that's not the mission. Not mine, anyways.
I'm pretty sure organizing is a big part of your mission. I don't know. She's not like, okay, there was a lot of talking about L. Ron Hubbard in the fucking podcast that I was listening to. Also, like, comparing and contrasting the two of them, because like both starting big movements, like both had the potential for like cult shit. Obviously, L. Ron Hubbard, Scientology is in fact a cult, so
yes.
But
what differentiates? Okay, I have a question, and I'm so sorry it's off topic again. But what differentiates an occult from occultism?
Occultism is occultism is like magic, like witchy shit.
Yeah.
Anything witchy, like occultism is like, it's Wicca, it's fucking tarot cards, it's like, occultism is,
I feel like occultism is like the word queer. You just put an umbrella term over a lot of different things.
Yes. Basically, yes. Because like you can, like, the Theosophical Society is an occult, like, it's occultism and Western esotericism. So like, in like Western esoteric thought, like this is like a branch of occultism. And Wicca is another branch. And black magic is another. Somebody might need to fact check me. Because
but then we compare. Okay, let's compare the ones that we were talking about though. Like you said,
Scientology.
The guy who Scientology.
L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, and then it brings me to wonder then Mormonism, just as like a real world thing here. So those are cults, right? So why is that different than like what she did? And then is it because it got disbanded and never really formed into a cult?
No, it's money.
It's money.
Money's the money, and
it's money and weird shit too, like sexual stuff.
It's money, and money's the only real definitive one. But then there's some other cult shit, like where it's like sexual harassment and abuse, like systematic, like because you think of a lot of cult leaders or have like multiple wives and fucking what?
Like Yogaville?
I don't know. Yogaville.
Like a sexual assault.
Probably. But I would also argue, like, because you could be in, like, I would say that I was in a financial cult when I was in Massachusetts, and like I always think of like money, like your money and your housing are wrapped up in like. She wasn't providing housing for these people. She was just like providing a space for them to come wax philosophical. She wasn't like. Gotcha. And I don't think they were taking money from anybody. I think they just formed a thing. Versus L. Ron Hubbard, like the whole thing is like
it's like a membership. Like you gotta buy into it.
You got to buy into it, and you pay more, and then you get to a higher level, and then you'll understand more. But then there's another level you have to buy into. Like, yeah, there's like a, yes.
It's a multi-marketing scheme.
It is
multi-level marketing scheme.
MLM, but for your spiritual well-being, yes.
Interesting. Thank you for these answers, Katie, and I'm so glad that they were brought up in the spirit of Madame Blavatsky.
I feel like she would have loved this.
She would have been like, girls.
A chain smoker. Big chain smoker, so
Ooh.
I would have hung out with her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'd be out there on that porch waxing philosophical.
We'd be out there on that porch with that coffee. I wouldn't have quit smoking if I was friends with Madame Blavatsky.
Oh, yeah, hell no. I would be like, oh, cigarettes again? Thanks, girl. Thanks for that tobacco.
Thanks, Rollies, my favorite.
Why are we like this, Katie?
I was just wondering the same thing. I love you.
I love you too.
Yeah. So that's all the major points. The fucking, basically her whole idea is like, the soul wants to, much like Hinduism, the soul wants to be, I'm going to use Hindu terms, even not theosophic terms, because that's what I'm more familiar with, but like the soul wants to be released from the wheel of samsara, so they're, yeah, so you get reincarnated until you don't, and then that's when you've reached enlightenment.
So the questions that we had this week were impactful, to say the least. What is our connection to the cycles of life and death is the first one. What's significant about resurgence to magical practices? And are we currently seeing another spiritual awakening, and what does that mean? Katie had some thoughts on the first question about the cycles of life and death.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, like, the cycles of life and death are everything. They're, like, the seasons, the wheel of samsara, it's all of it. Like, death is what makes life special. It's the way of the world.
That hit. That was like a mic drop. Damn. I felt that in my soul, dude. I felt that I took a breath in and I was like,
if I was looking at you, I would have seen it. I'm so excited.
No, I was very nonchalant about it because I was like, why does the world smell different for a second? Sorry.
That's so wild.
Really spiritually powerful things happen to me. It's just like a weird little thing. Is
it the same smell, or is it that you don't smell anything at all?
No, it was the same smell, but it was like maybe like 4 degrees warmer. So like a little toasty air.
A little toastier.
Yeah.
Does that at other times?
Just in that instance, I don't know if it's the same all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pay attention. Next time you notice that, if you wouldn't mind, shoot me a text and tell me what the air was.
I'm glad we got it on film, because when these spiritual things happen to me, it's no joke. Okay. And it's funny because like I liked what you said. It wasn't like I was fearful of it. I was like, oh, that's good. It was impactful, and then all of a sudden I felt like it resonated throughout my entire body. So
that was cool. I how wonderful that my words can physically affect you.
Yeah. Yeah. My therapist calls it the tism, but we'll see. I think it's because I am beautiful and made just how I'm supposed to be made by God. Thank you.
You are beautiful and made exactly as you're supposed to be made by God. And there's nowhere else in the world we are supposed to be right now.
Oh. Well, do you think there's another spiritual awakening happening?
I was like, is there? No, spiritual awakening, yes, sorry. I thought I went magical resurgence. Spiritual awakening. So, magical resurgence, I'm kind of like, nah, bro, we're just seeing it on Instagram. Like, I think that there are a lot more baby witches since like 2016. Then that, I personally kind of like, that might be a thing actually, because I've become a baby witch since 2016. But I feel like we've always had people practicing magic. It was alchemy back in the day. Like, it's fucking like, I feel like this has just been a thing that some fraction of our society has always been up to this shit. Potentially, we are seeing, I'm glad you pointed out the 820, the 2016 of it all, because definitely we are having a spiritual, like, reawakening.
I don't like to think of spiritual awakenings as a one and done. I think it's like it happens all the time.
It does. But we're all, it's like a collective. It's like we're.
I think something has to happen. Like, I think something collective. I think, yeah, there's a collective shitstorm that happens, and then people are like, ding.
Yeah.
Like, I think that happens to people. I just think what that event, that triggering event is very arguable depending on your subjective view of what's happening in the world. Because, okay, so, like, one of the things that I would say is that for me in 2023, October of 2023, okay, like, we all kind of know what happened in October of 2023. There was the missiles launched in Tel Aviv, and then the direct response by the Israeli government on Palestine, which was to commit over a year-long genocide. Now here we are, right? Decolonization happened in my brain, like, just markedly. And I don't call that magical research, and I don't call that a spiritual awakening, okay? Decolonization happened. I was already on my path to it because I wouldn't have got there with... I am already sympathetic to world global issues. In fact, I have an interest in world global issues. So it wouldn't have been, like, weird for this to have happened to me. But I had to realize how much work spiritually I had to do to keep up with what had just happened to my decolonized mindset. And one of my favorite podcasters, and I don't listen to her podcast a lot, but I do love her. Her name is Molly Adler, and she talks about spiritual awakening sort of being like, well, and she doesn't say spiritual awakening either. This is just kind of how me taking her words and then kind of relating it. She says something about the challenges of the gatekeeper's worldview, meaning that, like, if the worldview is gatekept from groups of people, like the American public or something, or just like people generally speaking, you don't have to be like from the government, because it can be just from the systems themselves that have been set up for so long that even a government official would be under the same worldview gatekept, right? So it's like the spiritual thing is like your spirit I don't think it's like your spirit catches up or your spirit tries to match that level of, like, ontological shock, because what it does is it provides you an ontological shock, right? And your spirit has to do something with that. It's not just a mind problem at that point. It's a both problem. It's an all body experience. So when that ontological shock is activated after you're challenging those worldviews, and you're realizing you're confronted with a truth that's so profound, that's your spiritual awakening, and what you do forward is, like, your choice and, like, your destiny of, like, where you're going and stuff, right? So, like, let me set this up. Materialists, for example, they realize that consciousness is not confined to the brain. The consciousness isn't just in your head, right? Consciousness is a lot of things. That can be challenging to them and provide an ontological shock against their worldview. And then they'd have to go somewhere else to find something that they're curious about when they ask these kinds of questions. Versus, like, religious people who they have an understanding of the phenomenon that it's, like, either good or evil or the devil and God. So when someone says it's not that and your framework is wrong, then they have to be like, doing the same kind of searching. Your average jabroni just kind of, and this is kind of the camp I feel like I'm in, is just like everything we kind of know about space, time, and existence is just fundamentally changing, wrong, or incomplete. Like, I don't think it's wrong. I just think it's incomplete and changing.
I mean, yeah, incomplete and changing. But those things will make something wrong. Like, if it's incomplete, it's wrong. Well, I mean, yeah. It's not right. If it's incomplete.
It's just not the whole truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth, which is the question at hand, right?
Yeah.
And I just think that also realizing within this whole framework that if we were talking about, like, a real ontological shock, like the aliens are real, that's gonna, like, shift our worldview so drastically that we won't see the same world, right?
No.
Like, it's not gonna be conceptually anything like what it was before. But like we can have little ontological shocks, right? Like I just described, like, you know, maybe I stopped believing in Christianity and started believing in witchcraft or started practicing witchcraft, and that's because my worldview changed, and then my spirituality then followed.
Shifted,
And the awakening was that I should probably take care of myself a little bit better in these regards. And it's becomes then so personal, right? You're like, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And how are you going to help other people help themselves? And, you know, all those kinds of questions. And I think for a long time, spiritualists have been saying, like, you know, work on yourself, do the shadow work. And I think we're past that point now. I think a lot of us are in the point of like, well, what do we do with each other? Now that we've found community, what do we do to make the world better using magic? So that's why I think the resurgence question I had was because I think there is a little bit of a resurgence, and I think you're kind of right too, that it's just about connectivity, like about being able to see it. But that doesn't mean that we can't effectively create change using the tools we've been given and the perspectives we have.
Oh, I believe we certainly can.
I feel like, yeah, I know, me too. I feel like there's no answer to this question easily because it is one of those like massive questions again. But the reason we ponder it is because I think it does change things in the paranormal. I think it changed things in this personal spiritual connections that we have. I think when our symbols change, we change. And I don't
or do our symbols change because we've changed? Do our symbols, I think our symbols change with us.
Yeah, it's, I guess, like, more to the point, it's evolving, just like I said it was. Like, it's evolving and also maybe incomplete. Which means, yeah, some of us are going to be wrong at what that is. I guess it depends on, like, are you okay with being wrong? Yeah. And I think that's a lot of the work some people, I think, have to do. It's like, just be okay with being wrong and moving on. It'll probably make you stress out a lot less.
Yeah, you don't have to be right all the time. I don't have to be right all the time.
I don't have to be right all the time. As somebody who's chronically right, I don't want to be.
I want to be right all the time, but I don't. As a recovered addict, I'm very comfortable with not being right.
As a recovering A+ academic student, scholar, put on a pedestal by my parents, I can never not be right. But it's okay because I know, again, this is part of my spiritual work, which is just like, see the problem? Well, don't bypass it. Do something about it. Move on. Like, it's not
breathe through
rocket science.
Yeah. It's not. It's not. And also, what did my dad say one time? We were talking about live philosophy. Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Because, like, if you're wrong, then you get corrected, and then you get to end up at right. Not bad, you know?
No. Well, I thought we'd end this in talking about a couple tarot cards.
Tarot?
Yeah. I thought we'd bring up the High Priestess, the Magician, and the Hierophant.
Those are some of my favorite cards. The High Priestess and the Hierophant specifically are two of my favorite cards.
Tell me why.
High Priestess she's a keeper of knowledge. They're both keepers of knowledge. High Priestess is of the subconscious, more feminine, fucking, like, secrets of the universe, it feels like to me, versus Hierophant comes across more like wisdom, knowledge, like, from the generations, from the sages, like, it's more structural. I
also do read the Hierophant is more of a gatekeeper, and a High Priestess is more of a
they're both gatekeepers to me.
I feel like she's more of a gatekeeper in the righteous way, whereas he is more in the systemic way. He's like he's more of the, like, you have to graduate this lesson, and she's more like,
you learn it when you're ready.
You learn it when you're ready, but also I'm gonna throw in some mysterium in the mix. Like,
yeah,
you don't always get to know why she does the things she does.
Interesting. She's always showing what's hidden, and he's always showing, like... Because I'm such a contrarian that I, like... Sometimes I need to learn how to work within a structure. You know?
I definitely need to as well, except for I can't. I don't do it well. I just shouldn't say I can't. I just am so bad at it.
You just hate authority that much.
I really fucking do. See? I'm getting angry just thinking about it.
No, I'm right there with you.
Also about the magician and the high priestess.
Okay, also the alchemical, like that's the other thing, is that like he's our alchemical fucking
see
dude.
how it relates? Do you see now?
I mean, yeah. Do you see, like, you, the listener? Because I got it immediately, but
so I pulled the magician, the high priestess, and the hierophant, and I am going to read some cards for the collective. And what I'm going to read is pull one card underneath each of the corresponding cards for a message that is from each of these people. Considering all that we've talked about today, what can we learn from the tarot and from these archetypes moving forward as a collective? So I'm going to pull some cards. And also what I was going to say earlier too was that the magician, the high priestess, and the hierophant all appear very early in the major arcana. You have card number 1, number 2, and number 5.
Yeah.
And so they are some of the most powerful archetypes in the deck. Simply because they start the deck.
Yeah.
So.
High
priestess. To say that they're
also
more powerful. All of these cards are fucking powerful. So.
Yeah. I was gonna say high priestess. I also love the high priestess because she's like the keeper of the temple. I always think of a high priestess as being the keeper of a temple. So that might be one of the reasons why I love her so much.
The hierophant for me is the keeper of like a school, like a university dean.
No wonder you don't like him.
And then the magician to me is like this like little queerdo doing magic in the basement, and then something like a little mad scientist.
That's not unlike how I read the magician. Some decks he's more mad scientisty than others.
Yeah.
Like
so who do we want to read first? Who are we pulling first? I got 3 cards for each of the
magician, because he's the first.
Okay, let's see what he has to say. He says King of Swords. He says, go forward with all of the wind, snow, and ice power possible. You are observed in your journey forward, and you have to be doing things for the right reasons. Don't forget where your motivation comes into play with your action. So if you're motivated by something that's going to take you farther forward to the place where you want to be, charge there. That's what the magician has to say to you guys. Okay. High priestess next.
Yeah.
Ooh, we get a 3 of Wands.
Ooh.
A 3 of Wands is observing the spoils almost, but also at the same time looking at it with a sense of wonder. And it always makes me think about somebody leaving to go on a journey, even though home is where it's always been safe and beautiful and prosperous, but there's like a level of like, I need to explore, I need to figure out I need to figure out like what life has for me next. Okay. Hierophant.
Yeah.
Ooh, 2 of Cups. The 2 of Cups is a lot. Okay, so the 2 of Cups, how it differs from the Lovers for me is it's like, it talks about, I think, like an actual binding relationship. A relationship that is almost like blood soaked. And that sounds so visceral, but the reason is because it's like, it's more than just like, and it's not because the divinity has made it that way, like in the Lovers. It's because you guys have also agreed to that sort of level of intensity.
Yeah.
So there's
I always think of the Lovers as being about choice and not about like 2 people.
This is about, I think this card, specifically the 2 of Cups, is about making that choice and making that choice for a certain reason.
Well,
and I think
exactly,
like to bind yourself, like to be in partnership with.
No, yeah, because 2 is like the number of partnership, but also the 2 of Cups like actually has like the people like you know, being like exchanging something. Like it can be a partnership like between friends, it can be a business partnership, it could be a romantic partnership, but there's like an equal exchange on that card in and of itself, versus the Lovers get depicted differently, but more often than not it's a choice. You're choosing between 2 different things.
Yeah, I think the Lovers can offer you a choice and like, no, the Lovers offers you fate. The
No.
Two of Cups offers you the choice once that fate has been presented. So it's like, I think it's just like that spiraling thing where it's just like two things can be true at the same time, where it's like, I'm fated this way, but the next thing I do is my choice, you know, and then it becomes a spiral about looking to fate, then looking to my own guidance, looking to fate, looking to my own guidance. So altogether, in this reading of 6 cards that I have laying flat to me, I see a lot of people looking in a lot of different directions, and I see a lot of people looking for the same thing in those directions. It's so interesting actually how these cards are doing that for me visually right now. But I want to pull another card because I have another question for us as a collective. If we're all looking for the same thing in different directions, what can we do as a community to be helping ourselves do better? Just like seek knowledge better, do magic better, awaken, heightened, and elevated to the place where
connect better.
Connect better, for sure. Emphasis on the connect. I'm just going to pull one card, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Page of Cups. So cute. I love the Page of Cups.
I love the Page of Cups.
I feel like it's like this, by offering a person to, it's like, be this way is kind of what the message I'm getting. It's like,
be open with your feelings. Like, be open and vulnerable and willing to be wrong.
And go with the flow a little bit. Like, lean on the natural state of things. Like, the page always has the fish. I have a starfish in mind that's like right next to him because it's water that's in the cup.
Oh, it is cute.
Oh, no, it's a little minnow. There's a minnow coming out of the cup.
There's a minnow coming out of the cup? Okay.
Yeah. It's tiny, but like the fish always reminds me to remember the nature part of that card, which is like the page isn't ever like without the flow of the natural state of the world. And so like when we talk about making choices, but also what Katie said, add to that layer, like natural curiosity, natural flow. And I think that might start to make sense for y'all and hopefully us as a collective.
That was fun. I like it when we do tarot readings.
Me too. Okay. Thank you for listening to this episode of Files from the Other Side. You can find us on Instagram at Files from the Other Side. Share this podcast if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe.
And we'll see you on the other side.